Okay. Good afternoon. It's 6:01 p.m. We are getting ready to start our town hall for our election 2025, being an RFSD Board of Education Director. With me to good afternoon. It's 6:01 p.m. We are getting ready to start our town hall for our election 2025, being an RFSD Board of Education Director. With me to good afternoon. It's 6:01 p.m. We are getting ready to start our town hall for 2025. State Board of Education Director. Good afternoon, 6:01 start our town hall. 2025 State Board of Education Director. Good afternoon, 6:01 start our town hall. Good. Okay. Good evening. We're going to try this again. It is 6:03. We're beginning our town hall for our election 2025, being an RFSD Board of Education Director. With me today is Director Teitler, Director Kuhlenberg, Director After, and myself, Director Ramirez. We are really happy to be with you guys this evening to share some information on what it is to be a Roaring Fork School District Board of Education Director, what that entails, and also just to share some insight that we've learned. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Rodrigo. Does he have to say something, or can we just go right into the slide deck? Okay. Thank you. Perfect, thank you. So what is a school board? School boards are local, nonpartisan, elected governmental bodies that establish and revise policies for school districts to ensure equitable educational opportunities for all students in the district. They provide oversight for raising and spending public dollars in support of the district's public schools, staff, and students. And the school board conducts its work through its relationship with and evaluation of the superintendent. Who is qualified to serve on a school board? Board directors can either be elected or appointed. They choose to serve for various reasons. Some may have children who attend or attended our local schools. Some may have family members working in the schools. Some board directors may be former educators, while others may not have educational background or tie, but an investment in serving our students or our staff. The legal qualifications are to be a registered elector of the school district for at least 12 consecutive months prior to election or appointment. If applicable, a resident of the director district for which the vacancy exists, 18 years or older and a U.S. citizen, never convicted of a sexual offense against a child, and per Roaring Fork School District policy, a full-time district employee must relinquish their job to serve on the board. The mechanics of board work come down to 3 simple principles. The board works as a group, the board works in a public meeting, and the board works in a lawful manner. How does the board work as a group? The board's legislative role is applied through policy, resolutions, or proclamations. Thereafter, the board simply monitors the superintendent's implementation of its policies. When it comes to the board's judicial duties, such as holding hearings on student expulsions or employee terminations, the most important aspect of good board behavior is impartiality. To act as a fair judge, a board director needs to maintain distance from investigations and prosecution of the cases it will review. Thus, it is essential that boards rely on district employees and attorneys to conduct investigations. Oops. Sorry.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
No worries.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Betsy. After I'll go through the next section here. So what happens when board members disagree? Districts function effectively even when boards make difficult decisions through a split vote. When controversial issues come before the board, we like to have honest and healthy discussion and debate that leads to better decision making for the district. And doing that transparently helps the community understand the board considered varying viewpoints before making a decision. So that's really important. Board members interested in the welfare of the district can disagree on issues without damaging their ability to work together. When difficulties arise on governance teams, it's the responsibility of the board to address them. And this is best done through a frank and honest and transparent discussion in a manner that treats opinions with respect and courtesy. Board members must accept decisions made by a majority vote. That's really important. It's destructive for a governance member to disagree with the majority decision and then use the issue to promote community unrest or division. So we don't do that as a board. And in a democratic process, occasionally there will be disagreement. When the board decides on a split vote, dissenting voters will be given an opportunity to explain their stance, and then they will pledge to support, not to undermine, the decision of the majority of the board. The most effective board is one who has learned to disagree agreeably and from an informed perspective. Next slide, please. How do we conduct our work in public? So all meetings which are defined as a gathering of 3 or more members of the board at which public business is discussed or at which any formal action may be taken must be open to the public at all times. Social gatherings at which discussion of board business is not the central purpose are not considered meetings, but that doesn't really happen either. So boards must provide timely notice to the public about all meetings, and Roaring Fork Schools typically hold our regular board meetings every other Wednesday each month. We generally begin at 6:15. Special meetings can be held on occasion, but must be clearly defined and limited in purpose. The board can also meet privately outside the public eye, but only for executive sessions, which are even more limited in scope. The president or highest ranking officer present facilitates board meetings using Robert's Rules of Order and following the established agenda, including allowing opportunity for public comment per our board policy. We do traditionally hold work sessions prior to each regular meeting, and they generally begin at 5 p.m. These are designed for board members to seek and receive information, but not to take action. So for those who are interested in being a board member, the work basically starts at 5 o'clock and then continues through the 6:15 public meeting. Next. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Thanks. I was looking at mine on the screen. Sorry. So there are certain things that a board of education must do, we're obligated to do. And there are certain things that boards are permitted to do. And then there are certain things that boards of education are forbidden to do. One thing I think it's important for you to know if you're considering running is that In general, school board members are covered by the Colorado Governmental Immunity Act, which shields public officials from liability for good faith action taken in the performance of the school board members' official duties. And the district also carries liability insurance that protects employees and governance team members. Okay, so what is the role of each individual on the board? So great school board members are effective communicators. They review reports, including the packets that are prepared in advance of the public meetings. They engage in community discourse on topics and inform the public of the district's various challenges and successes. To work effectively, individuals on the board must develop mutual understandings. And so we have established relationship and operational norms that each member agrees to observe and that new board members are onboarded on as they begin. The Board of Education structure, we have an officer structure that includes a president, a vice president, secretary, and treasurer. And then who speaks for the board? So the practice of our Board of Education is to have the board president speak on behalf of the board when necessary. And individual board members are not speaking on behalf of the board, the rest of the board, unless specifically authorized by the majority to do so. And so going again on the roles of the individuals on the board, what we do is work collaboratively with the superintendent, community, and staff to establish and implement a vision for the district and for the desired student learning outcomes. We legally, ethically, and transparently and effectively govern the school district. We work to ensure that everyone feels safe, welcome, and has a sense of belonging within the district schools. We ensure that the district openly engages and collaborates with all constituencies, and we work to attract, retain, and develop high-quality educational workforce for the benefit of students. We ensure that the district provides instructional excellence for every child in every classroom. And lastly, we advocate for secure and wisely invest available resources to implement the district's vision and achieve the stated student learning outcomes. And we do all of this through our partnership with the superintendent. Okay, how do individual board members handle complaints? Complaints and concerns do come up for school board members. And anytime concerns about the district or its operations come up to board members, we have a process where we listen with courtesy and sincerity, and we refer individuals to the district policy on complaints and procedures. We do not assume direct responsibility for a problem, particularly when student or staff relations are involved. While we think about and consider what we hear from constituents, we feel that we can best serve immediate needs by directing people whom to contact regarding their concern. We have established clear communication norms with the superintendent about the process of handling complaints and concerns from the community in a document that is called the Board Handbook. And I believe, Kenny, are you next? Okay.
I'm Kenny Pegler, and District A representative, and my seat is up for election next week, in November. The next one is, how do the board and superintendent communicate? Updates from superintendent to board take place via email on a weekly basis, sent by the end of the day each Friday. When emergencies arrive, the superintendent will call the board president, who passes information on to other board members. When time allows, the superintendent will contact each board member directly or all in writing to explain the situation. In such instances, it is agreed that the superintendent will be the spokesperson of the district. Board members agree to defer to the superintendent and district staff on emergency communication with the media must take place. Heads-up communication is defined as matters that lie somewhere between routine and emergency. This takes place immediately by writing. When necessary, the superintendent sends a text to all board members to alert them. What are the most difficult lessons to learn? There are many along the way. Being a board member is not easy, and the learning curve can be quite steep. As a new board member, you should expect at least a one-year learning process. Some of the helpful tips to understand is the board must act as a whole and with one voice. As an individual, you have no power and cannot speak on behalf of the board. Members of the community may not fully understand the roles and responsibilities of board members, including the legal requirements. Providing quality educational opportunities for all students is a complicated process that requires multiple moving parts. Leaving a personal agenda aside to support whatever is best for safety and success of all students can be a challenge. Listening to understand the process and viewpoints is necessary, and asking questions is a part of the job. When a big part of the school board is to review and adopt policy, the Colorado law requires school boards to adopt and update policies and prescribe standard operating procedures necessary for the efficient administration of their district. Policy making is one of the board's most important duties, and something that's pretty much on every board that we do. The board's role is to establish policies to chart a clear course of action for the district. Policy making can be a time-consuming process, as it is a goal to be lawful, fair, clear, and reflect the best interests of all students and the interests of the district. Through policy adoption, the board establishes the organizational structure, the education program objectives, and operational practices for the entire district. It is through policy adoption that the board guides the work of the student superintendent and establishes district expectation as well as accountability practices for monitoring and reporting information to the board and the community. So this is the process for review and adoption. Except for an emergency, it takes 2 meetings to revise an existing policy and 3 meetings to adopt a new policy. A policy is first presented as an information item at a board meeting. It's called the first reading. At this time, board members studied the proposed policies. Board members engage in questions and answers with staff regarding proposed policy changes. Policy proposals may be discussed at public work sessions to determine legal requirements, purposes, and needs. A policy is generally accepted on first reading as presented or with recommendations for revisions. A policy is formally adopted on second reading as presented or with recommendations for revisions, which may be removed at a third reading. Any policy can be enacted after 1 meeting if it is adopted on an emergency basis. And this next part talks about what are the financial responsibilities of the board. The community expects the board to exercise financial oversight to protect public assets and manage the district. This includes setting priorities reflected in the annual budget. School boards must deliver a well-rounded education to all students. Thus, boards need to manage district financial resources wisely, take steps to secure personnel, and other resources needed for construction in the district within the limits of resources available and always while acting in the best interest of students. Community support for adequate funding of education programs may require a board to exert leadership, promoting and understanding of the district's fiscal needs. Thus, boards must also communicate the needs of their schools to state and federal lawmakers. It is the responsibility of individual board members to learn the legalities surrounding public school budgeting and spending. Please know that the Roaring Fork School District has access to many resources to help board members learn about this. How do board members uphold the financial responsibilities? One is by engaging in the annual budget establishment process in a manner in which fiscal prudence is exercised, by engaging with the finance committee when necessary. There's a couple members of the board that are on the finance committee. By advocating to align new resources towards district priorities, by reviewing and accepting the annual fiscal audit, by ensuring all policies related to financial matters are up to date, in line with current law and enforced, by understanding basic school finance processes, and by advocating for legislation and needed resources when necessary to meet the needs of the students. Yeah, we are.
Thank you, Jenny. I'm Catherine Kuhlenberg. I am the representative from District E within the Roaring Fork School District, and my seat is also up for re-election in November. So I'm going to go over the board and superintendent relationship and the way that the board and superintendent work together and kind of maintain their respective roles and stay in their own lanes to get the work of the district done. I'm not going to read it word for word, but I'll get through all of the information. So this is a super important part of board governance because if the board is unable to work effectively with the superintendent, it really stalls the work of the district, which is the work on behalf of students. So the only employee that the board is charged with evaluating and managing is the superintendent. And the board hires the superintendent who is then charged with operating the entire district. So they are the chief executive officer of the district. As Kenny explained, the board manages the superintendent via policy, via directives, via ongoing communication, through decisions at board meetings, various ways. But it's incredibly important that the superintendent not step into the role of board member and try to assume the role of board member by dictating policy or other things like that. And it's equally as important that the board not overstep the superintendent and try to manage other district employees or push in operations in any way, because that is outside the scope of the board's responsibility. We have worked really hard in the last 3.5 years to clearly identify roles and functions of the board and the superintendent. And annually we come to agreement on this as a board and as our CEO. And so we sit down each fall and we go over those and tweak them as necessary and ensure that everyone is on the same page and understands their role respective to the other, because it is such an important piece of this work. So next slide. One of the huge pieces of work also that the board does is evaluating the superintendent. And as I said, that is the only evaluation that the board conducts annually. So each year we work with our superintendent to identify performance goals, and we do that in collaboration so that these goals are something that superintendent and the board, we start broad, everybody comes up with their ideas and we narrow it down so we can get into agreement on some goals to work on over the next year. And going into the year, we use those as a touch point to help to manage the superintendent's work so that the superintendent understands the expectations. What we want to avoid is having a board that has unstated expectations, because that's not fair and not an effective way to manage a CEO of an organization this large. We need to have the bullseye clearly labeled, and so it's understood by both parties so that we know where we're going and how we want to get there. So the process currently begins every January. We put out a broad community questionnaire and we invite members of the community, staff, parents, anyone really within the Roaring Fork schools to respond. The board then completes evaluations, the superintendent completes a self-evaluation, and then we use that to come up with one unified evaluation. And the board uses that evaluation in order to determine whether they will renew, extend, non-renew the superintendent contracts. We try to align that with a spring decision, an early spring, late winter decision. It's really important to us and has been important over the last 3 years as we've done this consistently to ensure that every board member has an opportunity to have their voice heard through this process. And so having every board member complete that evaluation individually has become a really valuable piece of the process. We don't want any member on this board who is elected to represent the students and constituents of this valley to feel like their voice is not being heard and their thoughts not reflected in the evaluation process. We provide updates to the public via a meeting, usually in early spring, where we give a summary of the evaluation report. We provide feedback from the community, pie charts showing where the community has ranked the superintendent. And then we also provide updates on the progress towards goals and progress monitoring. The superintendent provides those to the board throughout the year. So those are all publicly available so that the public can maintain a touch point to the process and understand kind of where we are. Our hope is that this process is very clearly laid out and becomes more accessible the more years that it's done and people realize how it's done over and over again. And it can be tweaked by any board. Any board can change any of these things via policy and can shift as the board changes and grows. And I think that's important for people to note that a board is self-managed in a lot of ways. So who is the board accountable to? First and foremost, to the students of our district, parents, staff, community. We're elected by voters within our district, but our students are consumers. They're the ones that are consuming the education that our system is providing. We're also held accountable by the Colorado Department of Education. And so some of our responsibilities include establishing an annual budget, approving any budgetary changes throughout the year. It's reviewing all collections and expenditures. So those are all those different accounts that we have. Accrediting schools, looking at UIPs, school performance frameworks, accepting, challenging the state assigned accreditation ratings, and meeting or exceeding minimum state graduation requirements before awarding high school diplomas. Those are some of the ways that we're accountable, but that list is much longer than what is listed here. There's myriad things that a school board is responsible for doing, and we've tried to lay those out in an annual calendar to make it a little smoother moving forward. But it's getting to be a pretty big list. So next slide. So we have 2 district charters currently in Roaring Fork School District. We have the Two Rivers Community School and Carbondale Community School. We are the chartering authority for those schools, and the state of Colorado charters can either go through the Colorado, what is it called? The charter school, it's CSI, Charter School Institute, or they can be chartered through their local education agencies. We're the local education agency for Two Rivers and for Carbondale Community School, and we've chartered them. So we have contracts with each of those schools, and it's the responsibility of the board to review those contracts, renew them or non-renew them, and to accept any additional applications if there were to be more charters that wanted to become chartered through RFSD. Generally, the contracts establish kind of a governance relationship between RFSD and the charter school. They also establish a finance relationship. We pass through dollars to those charter schools. We have the ability to keep a very small amount for administrative costs, but primarily we're just a pass-through organization. And we also outline other services that either the district is providing or the charter school. We could outline specific services that the charter school has to provide to students. It's a contract, so there's room for additions, subtractions. But we have contracts in place with both of those charter schools currently. So what role does the board have in guiding the improvement of the educational program? Because I'm sure that if you are considering running for the board, that's probably one of your primary motivations is improving education for students. I know that's why I've sat here for the last 3.5 years. I think that's why most people that sit in this room late on Wednesday nights sit here, is because we want to improve education for students. And it's no small task. If it were an easy task and someone had the formula figured out, we'd all be doing it. School districts across America would be doing it. We'd be crushing it. But this is a very complex problem and a complex system. And anytime you're dealing with humans, there are so many complexities that you can't possibly envision or plan for all of them. So the board's role in improving educational programs is establishing a vision and mission for the district. And then this is in conjunction with our other major role, which is managing the superintendent, who sees that vision and mission pushed forward and actually puts it into action within the system, right? So the board worked just recently with the superintendent and community and staff to establish and implement a vision for the district and for desired student learning outcomes. This strategic plan for 24-29 is very different than some of our strategic plans have been historically. It is very detailed and layered and bullets out some very specific action items with who holds the key responsibilities for completing those and timelines and all of those things. So it's really a pretty comprehensive roadmap to push us forward. And I think I can say for myself and probably on behalf of the board, we're all hopeful that we see that movement and we have the momentum and that we can continue to carry it forward using this as a guiding light. But we'll be in year 2 in the 25-26 school year of a 5-year plan. So you would come in to a 5-year plan that has 3 years remaining. And that would mean in your second year, we'd start the process again of community engagement for developing the next 5 years of the plan. So what have been some of our greatest challenges? Why don't you give me the slide? Being on the board is challenging. You are constantly faced with situations and scenarios that you could have never anticipated. Again, that you could have never planned and prepared for, because we are dealing with so many different people, so many balls in the air moving at all times. We're a large system, but we also are in small communities. And so it really creates some unique challenges. So as a board, I think some of our greatest challenges have been creating new procedures and processes that clarified roles and responsibilities of the board and the superintendent. That was really a huge lift in my first year on the board, that we worked in conjunction with the district to really clean that up, because when there is not role clarity, when there's role confusion, it just leads to constant frustration and disagreements, because no one understands what they should be doing or shouldn't be doing in a particular scenario. So we've worked very hard to clean that up, and we now have some pretty clearly defined roles and responsibilities that, as I said, are revisited annually by the board as it's currently situated, because we don't claim to think that the rules we've clarified are going to work for every board moving forward, right? It has to be a dynamic system that can change with the board as it's constituted at any given time. The second bullet here is another huge one, and that's navigating systems change and practices to increase transparency and accountability from the district. When I was kind of sitting where you were sitting, because we didn't have this didn't happen at that time, but like when I was contemplating running, that's something that I heard over and over and over again. And that's something that I'm sure you're hearing, because that is the constant bell that is being rung, is that we need to increase transparency, increase accountability. And it is a struggle. It's a consistent battle and a struggle, and you can always do better and you can always move it forward. That also doesn't mean that there isn't more room for growth, right? Like, we may have moved it forward far, but there's a whole lot further that it can go. And this was a very hard thing to have done, but I do think that we've made some big leaps here. As Kenny mentioned, we have a finance committee now. We have a policy committee. We're reviewing and updating our policy book, which we had policies that hadn't been reviewed in 30 years. And so policies are the legislation of our district, right? Like, that's the law of our land, is RFSD. And so to have these policies on the book that we weren't using in practice and we didn't even know about, it was something that had to be updated and corrected. And so we've done a lot of that, and it was clunky and really hard at first, because systems change is hard, but I do feel like we are on kind of the downslope of that, and we've made some huge gains with this, and it can continue, like I said, to push forward. Navigating internal and external challenges in school finance and budgeting. This is a challenge all the time for public schools, for K-12. K-12 schools have been consistently underfunded historically, and will continue to be. And I think when you really dive in and understand the complexities of school finance, this becomes clearer. But this is going to be a challenge that will be at the forefront for the next at least decade. Not just here, but nationally, we're facing declining birth rates, so a decrease in the number of students and per pupil funded model. And that, along with what we're looking at in terms of federal legislation, state finance, and where state budgeting is, and then locally, we've already capped our mills and we can't get more locally, in conjunction with the way that our state pools dollars and then sends them back out. It's going to be a continued struggle for us. And so anyone who's considering this should really be prepared to dive in and roll up your sleeves and get into finances, because it is boring and tedious, but it's also super important. It's one of those levers that you can pull as a board member. That's where your power lies, is in allocating dollars, because you get the approval of the budget. It's been difficult as we've navigated turnover in senior leadership. and also worked hard with the superintendent to clarify roles, responsibilities, and expectations for those jobs and those key leaders in our district that are super important. That's something that Dr. Cole has worked hard on throughout this year that she's talked about in her goals presentations and updates with us. But turnover isn't going to stop. As a valley, we're seeing this across every industry, right? It's harder to live here. It's harder to get people here. It's harder to recruit, harder to retain. Housing, which is the next one, is getting just tougher and tougher. Where we used to be able to, our staff used to be able to buy houses in Blue Lake and other working class neighborhoods. They're completely unattainable now. So that will continue to push us hard. As a district, increasing achievement for all students, that's a huge challenge and something that we need to continue to work towards. Closing achievement gaps, another huge challenge and something that we need to work towards. A rising tide brings up all ships. We need to bring all kids up and get everybody there. Attracting and retaining high quality staff. As it connects to the other ones, board challenges. This is going to continue to be really hard and something that we need to be creative about in supporting the district within the lane of the board, with what the board can do in that regard. Supporting staff and families with increasing costs of living. Again, if you pair that with navigating internal and external challenges in school finance, you see where some of the stuff gets very, very difficult. Partnering with families to support student achievement. That comes back to that increasing transparency. We want to be super transparent with families and bring everybody along on the ride of where we're going so that we really can move forward to attain that mission and vision of the district. Balancing the needs of unique school and community identities. This is one that really is unique to Roaring Fork School District. Having 3 really distinct communities within our school district is challenging. What people want on one end of the valley can be very different than what people want on the other end of the valley. What works for employees on one end can be very different than what works for employees on the other end. And so it's, again, a constant struggle to hear all of those voices and ultimately hear them all, digest it all, but then come out with a choice that is a compromise, right? It's not going to satisfy everyone. Responding to academic and emotional adjustments of students post-COVID is another thing that the district has spent a huge amount of time on in the last 5 years. Keep hoping that we get past that, but it's pretty clear that there's still a lot of work to be done in that regard. And then responding to safety and health needs of students and families. School safety is something that we as a board hear about often from the community. And I don't anticipate that going anywhere anytime soon. Okay. Oh, totally changing gears on my last slide. Will you
No,
switch?
it's my turn. Yes.
No, don't drive the next one or you have this one?
It's me.
Oh,
Sorry.
great. You can.
To follow up on what, oh yes, thank you. To follow up on what Director Kohlenberg was just sharing, we do have some expectations of new board members that we wanted to share because it is such a hit the ground running transition. In addition to actively participating in regularly scheduled work sessions and board meetings, new board members to faithfully participate in an orientation and training process, participate in board development training opportunities, participate in committees and additional duties as laid out in our board member handbook, and to advocate for the resources our community's public schools need to operate effectively. And of course, to be informed and communicate the district's vision, mission, and strategic plan. It's important, I think, for board members to advocate, and I think we have made a good faith effort as a team to say, if you need support, if you need professional development, if you need a mentor, we're happy to provide that. I think it's something that when I came in onto this board, it wasn't at that time set up in the infrastructure that we have today to really help on board with the help of the superintendent, new board members so that it doesn't feel as difficult to understand how we operate and how the board has its conversations and how we're autonomous from the district. And I did want to add that, we at the Roaring Fork School District have passed a policy where school board members are eligible for a small stipend. You are able to opt out of that if you decide that you do not want to participate. But we wanted to make sure it was equitable for anyone who wanted the opportunity to be in a position such as this and serve the community. And we also know the sacrifice it takes when you have small kids, when you have to travel. And so it was a commitment that this board made a couple years back. Thank you. And then we're gonna close out. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, save the dates. Oh, I skipped my own slides. Save the dates. Board commitments post November 4th, post the election. November 12th, board meetings for swearing in new board members. If results are certified, if not, then we will ask incoming board members to please plan to attend as part of preliminary training. On November 19th, we'll have a board work session and training and special meeting for swearing in new board members if the results on the 12th had not yet been certified. And then December 3rd, we have our regular board meeting. And so we obviously will have a work session that day and our regular scheduled board meeting. December 11th to 13th this year is our Colorado Association of School Board Conference. We have in years past tried to make a concerted effort to have the entire board go. There is professional development. There's an opportunity for us to meet our colleagues across the state. And it is something that we have worked towards trying to make sure our team and the superintendent are there to partner and network, especially in a time like this where our state is having different conversations taking place across the state. So it is something that we ask that we want to make mandatory moving forward. It is the only annual conference for CASB. And so the dates changed this year, but we do hope that whoever is incoming on the board will make schedule it into their calendar and make a concerted effort to attend and join us. Okay. I want to move us into why we chose to serve as board members, and then we will move into a Q&A. I think it's really important for us as a board to be able to share with you guys just some of our brief thoughts of why we chose to serve. I think Director Kuhlenberg alluded to it. For a lot of us, it obviously is because we wanted to help the school district and more than anything help students achieve. And so I will go first and then I'll hand it off to the board and we'll take turns. But I have my oldest is on the autism spectrum, and when he was in elementary school, we had a situation where I felt that there needed to be more representation on this board for not just Latino families, but for families with students with special needs who, as a child of immigrant parents, as a child, first generation student in the public school system, it was really important for me to be able to help other families in the system and bring voice to that experience on this board. And so I feel that it is incredibly important for us as a board and for us as board members to be in community, to know what our district community is experiencing, to be mindful and thoughtful and engaged, to listen, to have integrity. And I continue to serve as a board member in this role because I think there's still a lot of work to do. And so it has been a great honor for me to serve with my colleagues, to serve with my past colleagues, to make a concerted effort to push our district forward in the benefit of all of our students. And I look forward to continuing the work with whatever board members step up and have the courage to run for a seat in such a time as this. I will say, I told someone the other day that when we were having this conversation of like, oh, it must be so easy. I don't think I've ever had an easy experience as a board member because I won right before the pandemic. So it's just been I don't think where where it's just like a fun, like, I'm retired, I'm gonna do this, I don't know that exists anymore. So I appreciate so much that my colleagues, have really jumped in with me in this role, because it does take a lot of courage. Want to go next, Director?
Sure. I originally wanted to be on the school board to help my community and the district, kind of on behalf of my two kids who are at Crystal River Elementary. It seemed like a role that I could play because I have experience working in a large organization, a large complex organization with a lot of needs. I didn't realize how complex this organization was. So I will say I came in with a lot of naivete about the role and the different topics and the sophistication required to really help support the district in moving forward to hit its goals. So I'm still learning a lot, and I think my why for being on the board changes all the time, but the current one is really focused on helping support Dr. Cole in her leadership, and in her pushing our district and our students to be a world-class institution in the face of many, many, many challenges.
Thank you. Director Conley?
Sure. So I made the decision to run when I have three kids. My oldest is 10. I have 10, 8, and 5. They're all in the Roaring Fork schools. So I ran, my youngest was 1, not quite 2. And I made the decision to run for a lot of reasons. I have always been an advocate for public education, and my own education and experiences have always been in and around education and employment. I was a practicing lawyer for some time, most recently, and to this day, I'm a preschool director, so had a large swing of educational experiences. But I think kind of in contrast to Betsy, I understood some of the complexities of the system and felt like I had a unique perspective that I could bring to the board. And my ultimate goal was to work out some like systems for the board and to square things up and get expectations laid out clearly. Like I said, it was kind of clear to me when I was deciding to run that that's where most frustrations lie, is when there isn't a clear understanding, when both parties entering in don't have a clear understanding of what the expectations are and what the outcomes are going to be or should look like. So that was kind of my goal, was to get in, update policy, build out some systems and functions, and serve in this capacity. I felt like I would be better suited for this than PTA. So
I chose to be on the board. I taught for 27 years in the Roaring Fork School District. During that time, I rarely, if ever, saw a teacher who had retired be on the board. I thought it'd be really good to have a teacher perspective on the board. I sort of felt like I wasn't done with education, even though I had retired, and it just kept tugging at me to do that, I think. And having seen my 2 daughters, great experience in our district, and I just wanted to be able to help continue making our district a great place. And additionally, a big pull for me to be on the board was to see what else could be done for closing our achievement gap that we have for our second language students who continue to battle for many different reasons. And it's not all neatly tied up with a bow to say, oh, if we do this, this will make the change. It's very complex. There's lots of reasons. And it's a slow process. And I think that's just a good thing to remind anybody who comes to be on the board, who's coming with your grandiose ideas. It's good to keep those there and have them and have your passions that we want to work for and to represent your constituency, but things go slowly in like policy and through change. So it's hard sometimes to see the big picture, but when you step back, it's easier through the process to see the effect that your group and the board has had in the long run. Day to day, it can be a little hard. You hope that in this position, you're gonna get all these people coming up saying, thank you for all the work you do on the school board. And you get that occasionally. But mostly when people are talking to you, it's because something that's not right. And so it is a position that requires you to really present it, be able to listen well, be able to hear and represent and point people in the right direction. But it isn't a smooth sailing. It's because of the fact that people do talk when there's something that they're not happy about it. It seemingly is always something that needs to be solved. And so, but I do think it's been a great experience and I'm super glad that I did it. And I felt like it's been a very rewarding position.
Thank you so much. We're gonna go ahead and pass the microphone around. We'd love for you guys to just share your names, for those who are present today, why you're here. And we would be open to any questions you have of us.
I think you have. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Taylor. I was just curious to find out more about the process, and I appreciate that you guys have this informational session for us to learn from. So thank you. I'm Liz, and I actually work here at the Roaring Fork School District for the Family Resource Center. And yeah, like Elizabeth, I just came to find out more information about I'm not going to be running because I work here. Just get some more information to support maybe candidates that will be running.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Ruth Cover. I also work for the district at Basalt High School. Just curious about this process and all of your experiences. It's a very interesting time. So, yeah, thank you.
Rich, you want to stand up?
We know you.
Well, thank you guys for being here.
Do you all have any questions though, like that?
You did a good job. I have a question, but I appreciate how difficult that position is and how much work you all have done. I know it's hard. So thanks.
Thank you. And feel free. We also, because this is being recorded and will be updated onto our website. We do want to encourage anyone who is interested or who might have any questions to please reach out to us. You can find our emails on our website. And please feel free to shoot us an email. We're happy to meet with you individually if it requires more of our time. We more than anything want to make sure that if there are any questions we can help answer regarding our positions, regarding the time, the commitment that it takes to be in this role, we want to make sure that that we as a board are being as useful and effective in helping bring in you potential board members and like opening the door and propping it open for the diversity of voices. So thank you so much for your guys' time. It is 6:54 and I'm going to go ahead and say thank you to everyone for joining us and have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.